Hey all, good morning. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. Yes,
Good
you are
morning.
audible.
Thank you. Yeah. So, yeah. So we started with first module Spring IOC in the last session. Anybody new today? We have already 2 sessions, right? 2 or 3 sessions before this. Did anybody join new today? Is it your first session?
Yes, sir. Today is
Who is
my
that?
first season, sir. Hello.
Yeah. Who is that?
This is Ram. Today is my first season, first
Okay.
class.
Okay. Ram.
Yeah.
Okay. Sure, Ram. Just basically we started with the course content. So we are going to cover all these topics, Spring Boot microservices, Hibernate and Servlets as part of this course. Okay. So basically the expectation who is joining here is we are expecting at least they need to have prerequisite CoreJava. If they know CoreJava, that is most enough to learn the Spring. So that's how I planned this course. So you need not to have any other knowledge. If you have, that's well and good. Though with core Java knowledge, if you join, that is enough. And from Spring Framework, we are going to cover all the 7 modules: IOC, Jdbc, ORM, AOP, transaction, security, and MVC. And Spring Boot, complete Spring Boot content and microservices, including microservices design patterns. So, yeah. So if time permits, we go with the Docker and Kubernetes also. Few examples. And yeah, the daily sessions recordings you will be getting through your Google Drive and the blog which we have that I'm still upgrading it. I'll share the upgraded blog URL as well with the credentials so that you could able to log in and see the full course content of mine. Okay, that as a compliment I'll provide to everyone for my students. And one live project also I'll share it with you after microservices. And this is the WhatsApp group there you need to join. Right, I'm sharing it to everyone. Join there. So we started with our first application in last session. Okay, so before that, if you are not talking, go on mute. If you want to talk, you can unmute and so yeah. So these all are the topics from Spring that we are going to cover: Spring Framework, Spring Boot, microservices. Okay, so out of all these topics, the first important topic that we are going to discuss is Spring Core module. Spring Core module is having some techniques, okay, or some coding practices or some features, right? So the Spring Core module features only we are going to use across all other modules, right? We have Spring Jdbc, Spring ORM, AOP, transaction security, MVC, or Spring Boot projects, or RESTful web services like your microservices. Can you please go on mute? Okay, thank you. So this is the base important module that we need to start with it, okay? Because the Spring Core module is only having, all the Spring features which are, particularly required to learn the remaining modules, right? And the main important thing, without this, you cannot able to run any Spring application, which is container. So this container also as part of your Spring Core module. So this container is very, very, very important. Without this container, you cannot run these classes. This container is something like server for Spring libraries or Spring classes or for Spring API. So without this container, you cannot able to run Spring API classes. How, like, when you want to learn CoreJava, right? In CoreJava, we have, while learning Java, right? CoreJava, you have so many topics like operators, right? You have exception handlings, you have collections, you have threads. When you design your application using all these concepts, right? Arrays. When you design your application in CoreJava, if you want to run this CoreJava, what you require to run this CoreJava application when you use all these concepts? When you write your classes, in CoreJava generally you will write classes, right? In CoreJava you write classes, right? Finally you get something like this, right? A class test. You will save it as a .class file. This is going to save as a .class file. Screen sharing permissions ఇవ్వండి. Do you guys able to hear me now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
That's great. Let us bring to others. Join screen. Did you guys drop and rejoin or how it is? Okay. So when you design your CoreJava application, right? When you write your CoreJava application, you will write a simple class, and finally you will save it as a .java file, and you will use a compiler to convert this .java file into .class file. So Java C you will use here. So using Java C, you will compile this class. Once you compile this class, it will get generated as a .class file. So you will see one test.class. So finally, this test.class you will run on Java. So you will use interpreter here, Java space test. So this is how finally you need to run here, right? So Java is the interpreter. Without this Java, you cannot run your class. Up to here, your development. So you designed class and you saved it, you compiled it, .class file is generated. So your development part is done. You develop your code. So up to here is development step. So to run your class, you need Java command. This is to run your class. So without Java command, you cannot able to run your class. So this is the interpreter. On this interpreter only your class is going to run. So this Java interpreter will be available from JR. This development kit, compiler and all will be available from JDK. Okay, so JDK will contain both also. Similarly, if you want to compare this, here we have multiple libraries. When you code your application using Spring Jdbc, ORM, AOP, transactions, starter, Spring Boot or microservices, use anything. When you code it, right, once after your coding, right, once after you design your classes, Spring classes particularly, class Spring test, let's say Spring test. So this class you will save, right, Spring dot test .java. So obviously you need to compile by using Java C compiler only. So this is your Spring class and you saved it. You need to compile it, right? You are going to compile this class. Finally, you will get a generator. Right? Spring test.java. When you compile, you will be getting generating Spring test.class. Now, if you want to run this class, if you want to run this Spring class, you need Spring IOC container. Spring IOC container you need. Using IOC container only, you can able to start your class. To start this class, you need IOC container. You need to load your class into IOC container only. Okay, you need to configure this Spring test class into XML file. Through XML file, you should load it into IOC. Otherwise, your class no use. Your class you cannot able to utilize it. So whatever class you have, you need to configure it into XML file and you need to load it into IOC. Then you need to start IOC. Of course, IOC will start on Java only because IOC designed on top of Java only. So you need to use Java container to start your IOC. So on top of this Java interpreter only, you will start your IOC. When you start your IOC, IOC will start your classes. IOC will start creating objects for your classes. So IOC is such a mandatory for Spring applications. For simple core Java applications, simple Java is itself enough. Simple core Java is enough. Simple Java, JRE, JDK are enough for core Java applications. When it is Spring based application, definitely you need IOC. IOC is important. Without IOC, you cannot run Spring classes. Okay, you all understand this, right? IOC is an important container which is part of Spring core module itself. IOC means inversion of control. We call it as inversion of controlling container. So we have IOC container in the Spring core module only. Without this module, you can't run any of these libraries, any of these framework features. To use any framework feature, you need IOC. Okay, so to need to run or to use any of your IOC features, any of your Spring features, you definitely need Spring core module IOC containers. IOC containers are such important. Okay, so how many such IOC containers we have? Means we have two IOC containers, two containers variants we have, two container variants we have, two container variants we have in IOC. I mean, to run your Spring classes. To run your Spring classes, we have two types of IOC containers. Two types of IOC containers we have, right? So one is application context and one is bean factor. So one is core container we call core container, and one container is J2EE container. You know the need of them, right? Without these containers, you cannot run Spring framework classes. To run your classes, you need either core container or J2EE container. Core container or J2EE container. So core container name is bean factory. J2EE container name is application context. This is bean factory and application container name is application context. Core container J2EE container. In other words, you can call it as core container and advanced container also. Instead of J2EE, you can name it advanced container. So this is the container basically we will use in real time. This is the container we use mostly. This container implementations only we use mostly. Core container is a base container, very basic container. Initially they designed while Spring framework designing started, right? Spring framework people, they started designing with bean factory. Later they upgraded their server to application context. So from this application context, for real-time applications, we will use web application context. This is the real container that we are using. Web application, the name is web application context. This is the container that we are using, web application context. This is the web application context. This is one of the implementation of your application context only. Okay. So this many containers we have. This many containers we have. What is the difference, major difference between them? Bean factory is an old container. In interviews, you will get these questions. How many types of containers we have in Spring IOC? We can say Spring IOC is having two containers, one core container and one advanced container. The core container name is Bean factory. Advanced container name is application context. Application context is having one more web application context. One more application context we have in J2EE web application context. This is the class that we are using at real time to run your Spring Boot applications or microservices applications or to Spring MVC applications. We are going to use this container. Okay, so this IOC containers given in the form of Java classes only. Okay, so as I said, to run your Spring application, you need IOC here. What is this IOC? It's a Java class. It's a simple Java class. You need to load your XML into that particular Java class and you need to run it so that it will start all your Spring classes. Okay. So IOC containers are simple Java classes only. Bean factory is Java class. Application context also is a Java class. Web application context also is a Java class. They are all type of interfaces. They have implementations also. So these all are interfaces. They have implementation classes also. We remember with their interface names. Implementations we have. Bean factory implementation class name is XML bean factory. And here application context, for web application context, we will use class path XML application context.
So this is the one yesterday we have seen the example, right, Naveen?
Yeah. Configurable application context. So you just least bother about these containers, because once we go with Spring Boot or microservices, we never, directly utilize these classes. There are some other predefined classes are there. Those classes internally coded with them. Okay. But for now, the important container name that we need to remember is application context. Okay. Application context or web application context. Okay. So finally, when we start with Spring Boot real-time application, Spring MVC application or boot application or microservice application, we directly will not touch these classes. Okay, we will not directly touch these classes. These classes are called by some other, softwares like Tomcat will call them through help of servlets. Okay, so we discuss about that very in depth later. So these all are the implementation classes that we are going to use. So what is the difference between bean factory and application context? As I said, these are IOC containers, right? When I use this IOC container, let's say I have a test class. I have a Spring class, or class name is test class. So this test class I have. So when I load this test class into core container, what is its behavior here? If I load this test class here, what is the behavior? If I load this test class into bean factory will not initialize immediately. No initialization. Immediately. No immediate initialization it will do. When you load this, during loading, no initialization. During loading time, no initialization. So it will not initialize your class. Test class object it will not create. When it will create the test class object, when user calls, when user request for test object, then it will create. Until user request, it won't create. How user will request? There is a method in IOC container. Method name is getBean. In this getBean method, we pass that test class ID. Whatever ID you have in test class, right? You need to pass that ID. So when user calls this getBean, it will create object. It will create your test object. When user call, it will create test object. But whereas in application container, it is different. Application container will create your bean class object immediately. When you load it into application context, the scenario is completely different. During loading time only it will create object. During loading time, it creates all objects. Immediately it will create all the objects during loading time only. So if your code is having 10 classes or 20 classes or 100 classes, all your 100 classes objects it will create immediately when you load them. So when again user request for same class object, it will not create. It will refer the same object. It will refer the same object, which means already created object. It is not going to create one more object. This object initialization will happen immediately when you load it. During loading time only. When you request again, what it will do? It will return the same object. It will not create again and again. Okay, same object it will provide. Why? Because whatever classes you are creating for your application, right? When you code, for example, you are implementing one application, right? You have one startup considered. You created one application for your startup. Okay, so online food delivery system you created, online food delivery system you created, online food delivery system you created with the Spring or Spring Boot. Okay, so this is your project. You created here 10 classes. Okay, for our online food delivery systems. So for receiving orders, one order class you implemented, and to add food for hotel management, right? So food, add food products. You created one module for adding food products, and customers can order through order products, and delivery we will monitor through delivery class. So like this we have multiple classes. Let's say for receiving orders I have order API, for adding foods I have add product API, delivery API. Consider these are your controller classes. Once we receive request, we will send it to service class. Service will send it to DO class, which will keep record into database. When you order one record, it will store it into database. Same way, add food. So when hotel management, they want to add food into their hotel, right? I mean, whatever menu you are looking, right? So that menu should be available from hotel management. So they will add the food into the DB. So the same details we will see when we order for the, or when we search for the food. We'll do search, then we order it, right? We search for the food, then we order it. And delivery, when delivery person pick your delivery, so again he will check what is the address, where is the customer resides, what all things he ordered, what I need to deliver. So the delivery person will check everything, and he will bring your order. And from the delivery API itself, we will monitor where he is by using GPS integration or something. So like this, you implemented all your classes, your API classes, service classes, DO classes, right? For each, consider you implemented three classes, three. Total 9 classes you have. Total 9 classes you have for online food reservation system, right? You created 9 classes. Now, when you run this 9 classes on, this is your application. Now you want to launch it, right? You want to launch it into market. So the first time you are deploying it, you are deploying your online food reservation application with 9 classes. So where you need to start this? Into your IOC container. You need to start this into IOC container. So if you choose your IOC container class name here, Bean Factory. So if you use Bean Factory here, online food delivery application, if you are loading it into Bean Factory, right? You deployed it, right? We are doing deployment here. Deployment means placing your application into server container. So you are loading your XML into Bean Factory container. Consider you are loading your XML into Bean Factory container. You configure all 9 classes into XML, then you loaded this XML into Bean Factory. You deployed it. As of now, you deployed it. No hotel management added their product. No user search for the product. So you first give an access to one hotel person. So he started adding products into his database. So let's say one hotel person, Paradise, started adding their products. Paradise added their products from here. So when they submit their product data, right? They want to add biryani, they want to add something, right? So when they start adding it, so it will go to add product API class, and it will go to service class, it will go to DO class. So how many classes we have for each flow? One API class, one service class, one DO class. For each flow we have three classes. Which user requested for which flow now? The hotel person requested for this add food flow. He want to add food into database. So when he calls this, when he try to add biryani, IOC container will do what? IOC container will create add food product API class. It will create one object for this class, right? For add food class, one object it will create, add food object it will create, and add food object need to call service, right? So that service class object it will create, and DO object, when you want to save data into database, one DO object also will be created. So one hotel person invoked this bean factory. When he requests, it will create object. Paradise requested and it created objects. Add food object, service class object, DO object. Now one more hotel also registered with my online food application. One more hotel came in and they want to register. Something Bawarchi want to register into our application to deliver their products also. So they also wants to their biryanis and all. Now this person also calling. So already 3 objects created by whom here? Already 3 objects created by Paradise. When Paradise requested, already 3 objects are created. So totally how many objects we have in the server now? 3 objects. 3 objects created during Paradise request. Now when Bawarchi also requested to add product. So they also want to add product into system to sell their items. Now Bawarchi requested. So when Bawarchi requested, again it won't create objects. Already objects created, right? Same objects it will give. Okay. So bean factory will create objects at first time request. Okay. So when Paradise requested, for Paradise only they given when Paradise requested first time, for them only they created objects first time. Then after another hotels also, if they want to add, for them it won't create new objects. Whatever objects already created, it will give the same objects. So finally we have 3 objects only. Now one customer came, right? One customer came to book the product. Let's say Rajesh. Customer, he wants to book biryani. He want to book biryani, so he is booking biryani from either Paradise or Bawarchi. So he requested this application. When this person requested to book biryani here, so for booking, how many classes we have? For searching and order, we have one API class, one service class, and one DO class. So when this first person, he is the first person booking food here. So when he try to request it, so one API class object it will create for order class object it will create, and order service object it will create, and DO object it will create. So for this person it is created 3 more objects. So he ordered the food. Fine. He ordered the food. Now one delivery person came. One delivery guy came. Delivery person. We call him DP. So this guy is going to deliver to Rajesh. He will deliver the product to Rajesh. So delivery person, when he requested for the application, I want to see who registered. And I need to deliver food to him. So when he registered, what it will do? Finally, when Rajesh hit how many objects? 3 plus 3 objects. 3 more objects created, right? 3 more objects created. And when delivery person requested for delivery information, one delivery API service and one DO object also it will create. Again, one API object, one service object, and one DO object. For this delivery person also, 3 more objects are going to create. These 3 objects will be created. For whom? Delivery person classes. For each flow, we have different set of classes. So for order, we have different classes. For customer, we have different classes. And for delivery, we have different classes. Three classes considered. A simple example. So when first Paradise requested to add product, 3 objects created. And when first customer requested to book biryani, 3 objects created. When first delivery person requested, 3 more objects will be created. So successfully he will deliver that product. So on request basis, first time it is created all the objects. Then what about next Bawarchi when they add biryani? It won't create new objects. Same objects it will serve. The same objects, whatever objects in system we created, same objects will be in. What about one new person came in to order the product? Rajesh's order is completed. One more person came here. Anil also ordering the product. Let him order. It won't create new objects. Same objects it will consume. In system already objects created, right? Same objects it will consume. Now one more delivery person came to deliver product to Anil. So when he requests for Anil details, it is not going to create 3 more objects. The same 3 objects it will consume. This is how Bean Factory will create your objects of your online food delivery system. Finally, your system contains how many objects? 9 objects for its lifetime. Until you restart your servers, it won't create again objects in the same fashion. Let's say your application is live for next 1 year. How many objects there in your system? Java objects only 3 plus 3 plus 3, 9 objects. Only 9 objects. Because whatever classes you write here, right? Whatever classes you write here in Spring, those classes are singletons. Singleton means create only one object. One object is sufficient. One object means physically it is one object means physically it will be there as a one object, but when user requested, right, let's say at a time 100 users if though request also, these 3 objects are enough to serve 100 users request. So it is not that mandatory that you need to create for each user new objects. If you try to create new objects for every user, what will happen? Consider Swiggy or Zomato like this, right? They are having huge number of classes, not 9 classes. In real time, they might have, up to 500 plus classes they may have. Consider Swiggy or Zomato as an example. Consider for order, for adding product, for ordering, and for delivery. Consider for each flow they have 200 classes. 200 classes for add, 200 classes for booking, and 200 classes for delivery. Let's say this many classes if they have. The example, if you take Swiggy here, if they have this many classes, 600 classes, right? So when first time add people like hotel calls to add their food, 200 classes objects will create. When first user book their food, 200 class objects will create. When first delivery person will pick the order, 200 classes objects will create. If I use here Bean Factory, right? If I use here Bean Factory as a container to run my classes, it is going to create 600 objects. 600 objects it will create. Where it will create the 600 objects? In your server only, right? Let's say you have your own server, right? You have one full air conditioned room with 24/7 power. There you have some supercomputer, maybe i7 machine with 10 TB hard disk, SSD hard disk, and you have nice RAM, 100 MB RAM or 100 GB RAM or 1000 GB RAM, 1 TB RAM you have. So one server you have, one private server you have, or maybe in cloud you have. Consider you have one computer, supercomputer to run your code. Private server you have or cloud services. Now in this private server, it will create 600 objects. So in this private server, consider you have maybe you have 32 GB or 64 GB, 64 or 128 or 512 GB of RAM you have. Consider 512 GB RAM you have in this machine, not hard disk. This is I am talking about RAM. Hardly our laptops will have 4 GB RAM or 8 GB RAM. Hard disk, we will maintain 1 TB hard disk or 512 GB hard disk. Physical memory. This is logical memory. RAM is a logical memory. Logical memory means like your brain. It will store the data also, but currently whatever tasks are running, it will run on your brain and you will do remember, right? When you try to recollect, maybe from your hard disk you will recollect it into your brain. Such setup we will have in our brain also. RAM and physical memory we will have in our brain as well. So RAM is like a logical memory, temporary memory. So it will bring data into RAM and it will, do the operations. So now when I create 600 objects, 600 objects will run continuously on RAM, not on the physical memory. It will run on this logical memory. So 600 objects only if I create, maybe hardly they might consume. Consider the space they are consuming 5 MB or 10 MB. 10 MB space if they are consuming out of 512 GB, it is okay. But if I create new objects for every user, let's say Swiggy is having huge customers. Every day I do order here for the milk, they have Instamart and all that, right? So here I used to go to Instamart and I used to order. Many people will order for biryanis and all. Let's say every minute or every second, if the user request count is for each hour, let's say consider 10,000 users are requesting. 10,000 users are requesting for every hour. If you consider for 24 hours, this user count is 10,000 into 24, right? 2,40,000 users are requesting. This many users are requesting on daily basis. If you try to create new object every time, what will happen, right? So how many users? 2,40,000 users, right? 2 lakh, yeah, 2 lakh only, right? 2,40,000 users are requesting for each user 600 objects. So how many objects it need to create here? 10 MB for 600 it is taking. Now for 2,40,000. For 2,40,000 into 600 objects, or from memory size 10 MB it is consuming. So 10 MB into 2,40,000, how much MB it is going to take? So one more zero, right? 24 lakh MB it will take. It will cut it into GB, maybe. What is this? 2400 GB it will take. So this much RAM do we have here? No, we don't have that much RAM here. Maybe it is going to be more than 2.5, around 3 TB RAM you need. 3 TB RAM we need for one day. What about the users count if it increase more than per hour, right? Per hour I am saying 10,000. If maybe in real time not, it may be more than that. Maybe 1 lakh users might be requesting. If the count is 1 lakh users for 24 hours, 24 lakh people. Again 24 into 10 MB, it is going to be 30 TB. We can't able to keep on increase the RAM sizes also, right? It is not possible. Your server may crash and your business also will crash because of your fault services. Why you need to run that many classes here? Really not required. So one object is enough, 10 MB memory is enough. Instead of 10 MB memory, why you went through up to 3 TB memory, 30 TB memory? Though the users count is 20 lakhs or 1 crore or 10 crores or 100 crores users, still your system will consume for this object only 10 MB. The remaining space you can consume for users request. For each user request, he will send some order information. Maybe temporarily that order information need to be stored here, then it need to go to database. Until storing it into database, you may need to utilize your RAM for that purpose, not to store your objects. Getting right? So only it is going to create one object for each class for entire life cycle. So if that's the way, if you create an object, you can call that objects as singleton objects. Bean factory is going to create singleton objects, but when it will create, when user request only. Singleton objects. It will create singleton objects. Singleton means one object per entire life cycle. When you deploy, only one object per class. Only one object per class will create. And that too, when it will create these objects, when user first time request. In case of Bean factory, instead of Bean factory, if I use application context here, if I use application context in place of Bean factory, what it will do? If I use application context container, application context as a container, this is advanced container. When you use this class, what will it will do? The only difference is when you deploy it, right? During deployment time only, you are deploying here, you developed your code and you deployed it. As of now, no hotel, no customer, no delivery persons we have. During your deployment time only, it will create all 9 objects. So while you are deploying your code itself, it will create 9 objects and it will wait for the hotel persons and ordering people and delivery people. It will prepare everything. It will ready your infrastructure. It will ready your objects. Everything it will make it ready and it will wait. Just you need to request from portal side and from user side and from delivery side. Already objects are prepared. Application context will prepare objects beforehand itself, whereas bean factory will prepare objects when user request only. So that is the difference between bean factory and application context. So we call bean factory is a lazy initializer, whereas application context as a eager initializer. Eagerly during deployment time only it will create objects. So the benefit if I go with application context is, as a developer, let's say you are a developer, you implemented 9 classes, you are deploying it into server. If there is any problem across all these classes, right, during deployment you can understand, you can see the problem, what's happening with them. And one more thing, right, why you need to wait for users request? You need to create always these objects. You are going to create them. The reason is you deployed it into your production. First, who need to add the product for testing purpose? At least you need to create a dummy hotel and you need to add product. As a dummy user, you need to order product. As a dummy delivery person, you need to check delivery flow, right? Customer need to check. Customer means who? The Swiggy owner, or if it is your own application, you need to check your application how it is working. You will test it. That is in production also. We'll fully verify it before giving access to portal people and individual persons to order their products. So then why you need to wait this object creation till user request? Anyway, for production check itself, you need to verify it. So you need to create all these objects. What if this object created during deployment time? Why you should wait until customers request to create their objects? If you wait for customers request, what will happen? You return your code and you are in impression that my code is everything is fine, this will run perfectly. In that, imagine you deployed it, users requested, then it failed because of so and so reasons. Then again you need to get your code back, you need to test it, again you need to deploy it, again it may fail, maybe. So what you need to do always, you need to deploy and you need to verify in your production also to make sure that application is working fine. So it's always good that create objects during deployment only. So during deployment only, if you want to create objects, the recommended container is application context. Do you all get it? Application context will create objects during deployment time only, but same number of objects. It is not going to create multiple objects for each class. For each class, one object only it will create. Finally, 9 objects. So here for Swiggy, if you take 600 objects, application context also is going to create 600 objects only. But that object it will create during deployment time only. So that's why application context is the recommended. This is the recommended one. Bean factory is not recommended one. Everybody will use this. Bean factory is a recommended. We prefer this always. Okay, so that is what the difference between both. We will see example between both of them. We will create these classes and I'll show you. Okay, so that easily you will understand how they are behaved. In tomorrow's session we will see them. Okay, you all there? Yeah, am I audible to everyone?
Okay.
Yeah. Sure. Any questions so far?
And I mean, those objects created using the application context as any limitation, or it can serve any number of requests?
Any number, see, that's again different context. Application context need again a server.
Correct.
If
Yeah.
it is a web deployment, you need a Tomcat. Tomcat will
Correct.
have limitations, right? It will have limitations. It depends on your server. Let's say if you are running it in your local machine, private server, as I said, right? private server you have, maybe there you can configure maximum users limit, how many concurrent users you want. You should not allow many users. Let's say there is a small temple, devotees, lakhs of devotees are coming. You should not allow at a time 1 lakh devotees into the temple. If the temple is small, maybe on hourly basis you need to allow 10,000 users, like that. Similar way, if your server is small, your RAM is small, your hard disk is small, and your cost is very small, you invested on server, limit the users. Okay, limit the users request. So what if you limit, the other users may see the errors, right? We may lose the business also, if you see from that point of view, right? So if users count is increasing on day by day, maybe use some auto scaling options. Automatically, cloud is there, right, to serve such purpose. So if huge number of requests coming in, you don't know how to handle that. In such case, if you go to the cloud, there it will handle it. So you can increase it continuously. You can in AWS or Azure, you can say, now if 10,000 people comes for the next 1 hour, allow them. Maybe tomorrow, if the count is going to increase from 10,000 to 1 lakh, let's allow them. Increase it by, based on the number of users request. If it is going to exceed more than 10,000, let it increase up to 20,000. If it is going to increase up beyond the 20,000, let it increase up to 40,000. Beyond 40,000, increase to 1 lakh. Beyond 1 lakh, that is increase to 10 lakhs. You do auto scaling. You can set auto scale options. Yeah. So automatically your server will, the particularly AWS services will handle that scenarios. If it is your private server, I don't think you have more options. Whatever maximum limit you can have, you can put it. That's it. Beyond that, if users request comes in, maybe you need to handle, multiple servers you need to put again in your local area, right? In your room or wherever you deployed it. So multiple servers you need to start. If one server is busy, maybe using routers, you may need to redirect to another server, another machine itself. That also we can do.
Okay.
Yeah.
One query, Uma here.
Yeah.
So you are saying all the objects will be created singleton. That means only singleton those objects will be created, and same will
Yes.
be shared with the multiple users also.
Yes.
That means in this example, the Rajesh books the biryani. Then in that case, he may book for 1 kg, and the other person may book for 2 kg. So in that case, the data for the Rajesh is different, and the other person is a different. So how those cases will be handled? Because singleton means that is one object, you will have a same data for that a particular object, right? So in that case, how it will be handled?
Yeah, that is a different discussion. Here, whatever classes you will implement across your MVC, right? API classes, service or DO classes. So these classes are common classes. Okay, these classes are common classes for all the users. So on object level, you should not put any shared data. Okay, you should not put any shared data. Which is shared data? You are booking for the food. Let's say food object is also there. Okay, apart from API class, service class, DO class, food object is there. So when Rajesh requested for food, for Rajesh we create one food object. For Anil we create one more food object. These objects are different. For each user we create these food objects.
Okay.
So these
Got
are
it,
user
sir.
specific objects. These are application specific objects. User specific objects, of course, it will be created for each user. One new object. When Rajesh requests, for Rajesh one food object, for Anil one food object, for Naveen one food object. For every user one food object will be created. These objects we will send through API to service, service to DAO. So these classes are application classes. These classes are user specific classes. While designing applications, right, we will have these two types of classes: user specific classes, API specific classes. API specific classes should be singleton. User specific classes should be prototype. But good question. Yes.
Yeah, got it. Thank you, sir.
For this regards, right, we are going to explain a detailed again. We will have detailed discussion for this. But that's a good question, right? Yeah.
So for user specific objects, so after the user means completes his request, so automatically these
Will be destroyed.
destroyed, right?
Destroyed. Yes.
Okay.
Garbage collection will be happening. If you have any concern that it is doing garbage collection or not, you nullify it. Once you're sure that, okay, I'm done with my operation, just make it done. So nullifying means your object will be destroyed. Maybe if there are any better, garbage collection techniques are there, you can follow to destroy your user specific objects. But don't destroy any API object. You should not touch API objects. API objects lifecycle completely will taken care by your Spring. Just you need to know how to write that classes. Implementing API service DAO is simple here. Okay. Really, if you want to, develop the code, we even need not to spend here so much time to learn. Implementation of these classes are simple, but very in detail as an architect, if you want to design any kind of application flows, you need to know each and every topic very in detail so that you can customize your application in any order, in any way. Better customization you will do. Otherwise, implementation of Spring application is very simple. Okay. So we will see, we will play with it. As I said, right, there are many tools also, code generation tools also, best practices we have. Okay. So from very beginning to up to, expert level in the sense up to my level, whatever knowledge I will share it. Okay. So beyond that, if you have any thoughts, any ideas, you also can share. Yeah. So tomorrow we will see through example. Okay. We will create examples for this use case, and we will see how it works. Okay.
Sir, one question. So API in the sense it is a controller, right?
Controller, correct.
Okay.
Why I'm started using this API terminology here means earlier we used to implement simple UI controllers in single application. Nowadays everything moving towards microservices. Let us habituate with this API because every service independently we are developing as a API. I mean REST controllers. So that's why I'm using this terminology API. Otherwise you can call it controller also. Controller service DAO. As part of our MVC discussion, what I said, these are the MVC classes, right? Controller class, which will handle view request, which is coming from the user. It will read data and it will send it to service classes. Service class will send it to DAO class for doing cloud operations. So these three are the backend side implementations. Particularly Java developer will write this controller, service class, DAO class. Front-end developer will create this front-end. Front-end developer will call our backend. So here backend flow we will handle. We will read, we will send it to next layers. Okay. As per MVC, model view controller. This is the view, this is the controller, and these two classes you can call it as model, service and DAO class. View, controller, model, MVC. Any more questions? So from tomorrow, right? What we will do? Deployment time means, you put this question. Balkonde, you are clear or you want to again know about this? Deployment time means once after development, we people are production people will move our code to servers using Jenkins, or directly also they may place our WAR file or jar file. Once after placing, they will start your server. So that is what deployment I'm saying. Deployment references. Okay. It must be clear, right? We will talk about it. Okay. Yeah. You will get the clear understanding during example. Again, you can put all these questions. Okay. You will get clear understanding there. So that is all for today. So the total intention is here. I want to share the importance of IOC container. It is part of your core module. These containers are very, very important. Without these containers, you cannot able to run these classes. So these container names are bean factory and application context. Okay, and one is lazy initializer. This is lazy and this is eager. Lazy means until user request it won't create. It is early container. It will create objects during deployment time itself. When you start your server, right, it will start initializing objects. Whereas bean factory, until user request, it won't create objects. So always I recommend you to use this passion only. So you can give these examples. If anybody say why I need to create objects before users request itself, why I should consume my system memory, then you put straight questions to him. Don't you test your application in production once after deployment? Don't you do any regression test, or don't you validate it from the customer point of view? Definitely we should validate. So if you are validating means you are creating all the objects. Then what is the definition of lazy there? What is the need of lazy there? It's better always to use application context. Do you all agree with me? Yes, right? Yes, I would recommend it. Yeah, so we again discuss very in detail about them each one, right? How to start during coding, how to utilize them, each one how to utilize with simple examples. We will see tomorrow. Okay, so for today, that's all. Have a good day, and maybe 7:15, by 7:15 I'll start the session. Okay, so I am mostly right morning. I'm in puja today. It went somewhat late, but by 7:15 please all logging, we'll start it. Okay. After tomorrow's session, the link will change. Okay, you will get the regular link. Only whoever do the payment, they will get the link. Okay, and once you get the regular link, you will able to receive the videos. You will able to receive daily basis examples. You will be getting access to Confluence, a direct link I'll share. There I'll put the everyday discussions, paintings, everything. Day-to-day session, as a blog, we will refer that. There itself we can add all our examples as well. Okay, yeah, please try to do the payment by tomorrow. If you have any doubts, do let me know. Okay, yeah, thank you all. Have a good day.
One second. So you
Yeah,
have shared one link, right, which contains Spring and Spring Jdbc notes, right? Like if you download, it will download source and source
yes,
code. So
yes,
I'm
jar
not
files
getting,
are there, source files are there.
yeah, like I'm not getting how to use it, sir.
I will show you. This is the beginning, right? So one by one, while showing examples, right, you will understand how to use them. Just we need to import them. I'll show you, right? Once after our first session, first example, I'm going to show you how to download from our references and how to import, how to run each example. Okay, don't worry. So those are the very basic examples, not Spring Boot examples, Spring Framework examples. So you need to know how to run them. We need to import, we need to add libraries, we need to set up our environment properly to run that examples. Whereas in Spring Boot, simply we can import and run it.
Okay.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Yeah. Thank you all. Good day.